Okay, we're live. Welcome to week 2 of Get Lean in 2016. Let me open up my PowerPoint here. And boy, it's cold here in New Jersey tonight. I'm just going to kill a few minutes here because it's only 7:27. So we have a few more people that are going to have to dial in, join us, or log in. I'm dating myself here by dialing in. People haven't had to use dial-in modems to get on the internet for probably about 20 years, but um, I'm old. What can I tell you? So these are the things I think about. But it's cold here in Jersey. It's 21 degrees. I just drove back from the studio. Just finished my last client at 6:45. Went through a little nutrition with them. One of the things I'm going to start off with tonight is with our ID Life, which we've talked a lot about using the products and the nutrition and so forth. Big sale. Talk to the person who invited you here tonight. They will tell you all about the sale that we're having. ID Life gave us a big break over the weekend for us associates. We also added a new program called a loyalty program. We get points for buying product. So your associate who referred you to our program here tonight, they'll talk to you about that as well. And we're going to have all kinds of neat stuff coming up in 2016. It's a great time to be involved with ID Life Corporation as an associate and as a customer, because they do offer the best. I had a guy sitting in my office. I just finished his assessment with him for nutrition, and all the vitamins, minerals, and supplements he needs to take are going to be about $65 a month. And he said he was spending about $40 a month just on omega-3s. And he said, you mean I'd get all these other things in addition to a high quality omega-3? And I told him yes. And he said, well, I'm sold. He goes, if I had to go out and buy all that stuff in the store, it'd be well over $100 a month. And I got his formulation to about, I think it was either 60 or 65. I can't remember. But he was thrilled. And he's also going to consider our whey protein powder and our post-workout recovery drink, because the way I threw the workout at him, he was really sore afterwards. So, for those people out there, we're willing to share these products with you to get you to try them for the first time. Someone shared product with me. My sponsor, Brian Tim, walked in, who owns Tim's Window Fashions here. You can't hear me. Susan's saying she can't hear me. So I should be all set. All right, guys, give me a minute here.
It's 7:30 now, so you can officially start.
All right, and well.
Oh, wait, here we go. Got it.
21 degrees. I just drove back to the studio.
It's working.
Okay, it's working now, guys. I'm a little bit ahead of you, so now we're back. But anyway, it's 7:30. The reason she couldn't hear me is because I guess on your end it didn't go live till 7:30, and I started talking about 26. I started talking about 26 minutes after. So hopefully you're getting everything I just said. But what I was saying when Susan walked in is someone shared with me first. And I think that's an important component with anything we do in life, is that my father always said to me, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the way you show someone you care is by giving of yourself, giving your time, giving of your talents, and so forth. So I think that's just an important thing in life. So sharing this information with you tonight is something that I find to be very satisfying in my life. I feel like I've helped a lot of people. I will tell you that over the years, and I've been doing this now for 32 years in health and wellness and rehabilitative medicine, I've changed people's lives. And it's not because of what I know, but because of what was shared with me that I was able to pass on. I've only done one research study my entire life, and that didn't even get published. So it's not my research that I'm quoting. It's all the hard work of people who came before me. And we always say, between Will Smith of IntraFit and Dr. Jay Teta of Metabolic Effect, Fred Hatfield from the ISSA, Dr. Frank Cerny from the University of Buffalo. I can go on and on and on. Paul Paul Chek, who I've taken courses with. These are the giants in our industry, and they've done a lot of good work. And they've not all of them have done all that research, but they've dug through the research and brought it to the surface so that we can share it with you. So as we go through this program tonight, we're going to be talking a lot about exercise and the importance of exercise. And just know that this isn't the world according to Mike, but rather what I've learned. So let's move on. It's 7:32. I think everyone's online now. So let's talk a little bit about the little telephone game that your body plays. Okay, your brain is the operator. It controls everything, anything and everything, and everybody reports back to the brain. So underneath the brain, you see a little HP that stands for hypothalamus. And then you see the adrenal glands out to the side. You see the thyroid in the middle, and then you see the gonads. So in men, it's the testes where we make testosterone. In the women, it's the ovaries where they make estrogen. And there's some other hormones that are made as well. We didn't bring the pituitary gland in here, which would talk to the thyroid stimulating hormone and also the growth hormone. Okay, human growth hormone is huge. And there's ways that we can facilitate the increase of testosterone, estrogen, and human growth hormone, which are part of your tissue repair hormones. But everything's got to work together, because as soon as one thing goes out of whack, it's going to affect everything else because they all communicate to each other. So, back in the days when you stayed up late at night watching Saturday Night Live, they would always advertise like these party lines. You can get on, talk to people and stuff like that. So you can have multiple conversations with many different people. Or if you're really old like me, you can remember going on a CB radio in the 1970s, and you could talk to many different people at the same time. Well, the same thing happens in your body. Everyone wants to talk to the brain, and the brain talks to everything else. And the way that the adrenals communicate with the thyroid is by talking to the brain. The message gets passed through. So with different stresses that we have, different stresses from dieting, from exercise, from cold, from heat, illness, toxicity, there's some good stresses, and then there's some bad stresses. And even a good stress can be too much of a good thing if it's applied inappropriately. So let's go to the next one. So here we have stress coming into the system. So before I move off this slide, let me make a couple important points. We've talked a lot about the brain and nervous system using what as a primary fuel source? Sugar, right? The brain and the nervous system uses glucose, which is a form of sugar, as a primary fuel source, as opposed to the heart, which uses predominantly fat. It's 100% oxidative. So isn't that nice? The brain utilizes sugar as its primary fuel source, and the heart uses fat as a primary fuel source. So they're not fighting over who's getting what. Okay, and that's an important thing. Well, the adrenal glands also run on glucose. So what happens? Let's kind of take this a couple steps back here. What happens when someone over exercises and under eats, and especially on these quote unquote low carb diets where they're not eating enough carbohydrate in their diet? Okay, when you're over exercising and you're under eating, the adrenal glands are not getting enough fuel to run. When they start to become too stressed out and producing too much stress hormone, it can't handle that pace. It can't keep producing all this stress hormone like all your catecholamines, your epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline, that sort of thing. Eventually gets to a point where it can't keep up with it. So it sends a signal to the brain and says, I can't continue to function. I'm producing too much stress hormone and I'm not getting enough fuel. So I'm running out of gas. And the brain might say, you know what? I know how you feel. I'm not getting my sugar either. I'm not happy. So let's slow down this process. So now the brain talks to the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, remember, is part of your weight regulating mechanism. So it helps to determine, whether you should burn fat or store fat. And one of the things that affects the weight regulating mechanism is stress. What's the other one? Erratic blood sugar. Food chemicals and food additives is another thing. And of course, exercise. Too much exercise can negatively affect the weight regulating mechanism in the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus also looks at blood pressure, resting heart rate, heat, heat production in the body, and a whole host of other things. It's kind of like one of the control centers of the brain. So the message gets sent to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland, stop producing so much thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, so it sends a message to the thyroid. And the thyroid says, okay, we're going to slow this process down. Okay, so what does the thyroid produce? It produces something called T4, which is like a torpedo leaving a submarine. And then when it goes active in the body, it becomes T3. So anyone who's ever seen The Hunt for Red October knows that if a torpedo goes active, after, 2,000 yards, okay, well, if you close the distance and make it only 1,000 yards, the torpedo hits you, it doesn't explode, right? It's inactive. Okay, just a little fun for those movie buffs like me. Okay, but what happens is if T4 leaves and the body doesn't need to be stimulated, it doesn't make T3. It actually makes something called RT3, which actually slows the process down even more. Okay, now what's the importance of T3 again in the body? What organelle does it affect? It affects the mitochondria of your cell. What's the mitochondria? The mitochondria is the powerhouse or the engine of the cell. So it tells, instead of the cell running at 5,000 RPMs, it says, let's back this down a little bit. We're not getting enough fuel. We're over exercising. We want to kind of calm things down a little bit. So instead of running at 5,000 revolutions per minute, it cuts down to like 2,000 revolutions per minute. And so what happens? Here's the big problem. Doctor comes in, you see the doctor, wow, your thyroid is not good. Maybe you need some Synthroid. Maybe you need some Armour thyroid. Your thyroid's not working properly, but has nothing to do with the health and welfare of the thyroid. It has to do with the fact that you're under eating. And this is on a chronic basis. This isn't just one day. Remember we talked about metabolic compensation, and we'll talk a little bit about metabolic compensation in a couple slides from now. Then we talked about metabolic resistance, and then we talked about metabolic damage, right? So when someone comes in with hypothyroidism, they've created some metabolic damage that has to be fixed. And guess what's not the fix? Synthroid, Armour thyroid. Okay, it's all about the 5 things: sleep, hydration, nutrition, stress management, and exercise. That's what we're here to teach you. Okay, so at the end of these 4 weeks, if you have questions, I expect me to have to be on Facebook for a half hour explaining all this so that everyone gets it. But does everyone now understand that thyroid dysfunction usually has nothing to do with thyroid and has everything to do with the way that you're treating your body, and you're overstressing it by not feeding it enough and over-exercising, okay? Because that's typically what I see. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but usually it's a 40 to 50-year-old woman who's been on chronic low-calorie diets intermittently for many, many years. I could say the same thing about the gallbladder. I've seen a lot of people have gallbladder disease or have their gallbladders removed or having gallstones. Typically, the reason for that is chronic low-fat diets. And if you're not eating enough fat and you're not releasing enough of the bile, it starts to harden. And when it hardens enough and it can't get through the bile duct, you have severe pain. And that's why people have gallbladder disease. So it has very little to do with your genetics, has nothing to do with a lot of things. It has to do with the crappy way you're treating yourself. Okay, so I just threw you under the bus if that's your case. But here's the good news. Okay, it's correctable with what? Sleep. Sleep helps to minimize stress. Hydration helps to minimize stress. Proper nutrition helps to minimize stress. Stress management, self-explanatory, and exercise. Okay, so I beat this slide to death. Let's move on. And if this stimulated questions, good. I wanted it to. Okay, so let's talk about the truth about weight loss. Lower calories, lose weight, have a balanced metabolism. That's what the experts say. That's not how it works. And by the way, I'm giving Jen Wiederstrom a big 2 thumbs up. She has gone on that show, The Biggest Loser, and completely changed everything. She's really working hard to get people healthy and not just lose weight. And the way she's doing it is she's helping them to eat properly and exercise properly to have balanced metabolism. That way, when your metabolism's balanced, you'll naturally lower calories. And when you naturally lower your calories and you exercise properly, you'll lose weight for good. So again, let's touch base real quick on metabolic compensation. You eat less, you exercise more. Your metabolic rate drops. Remember, our body is like a thermostat, right? It reads the environment in which it finds itself. So if you're not giving it enough calories to survive, your metabolism is going to start to slow down to match the amount of calories you put in conjunction with how much exercise you're doing, right? And we've seen people drop 2 to 3, 4, 5, 800 calories a day. Your metabolic rate drops. Now, when your metabolism drops and your energy drops, guess what you don't want to do? You don't want to exercise. I have no energy. You're hungry all the time. You have intense cravings. You can't sustain that. Your brain's like, I need my sugar. Let's change this. Let's go back to the way we were. So what happens? You have weight gain and overcompensation. So again, here's your 4 panels. The red, obviously, are things we want to avoid, like eating more and exercising less. That's the typical American who gets up in the morning, has a bagel, drives to work, sits at a desk all day, eats pizza for lunch or Chinese food with big hunks of rice and sugar all over their chicken. That's what sweet and sour chicken and all that chicken, sesame chicken's all about. Then drives home, eats, watches TV, watches The Biggest Loser, and then goes to sleep, does the same thing for 20, 30 years. And there's hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and high cholesterol. And of course, you have the eat less, exercise more model. And that's where you have a lot of your autoimmune disease because you're destroying all your systems by not eating enough and over-exercising and stressing yourself out. So we have the 2 options. If you're going to eat less, you need to exercise less. And then when you get to a point where you can exercise more, you have to eat more to match the amount of exercise you're doing. So right now, we're kind of more in an eat less, exercise less model. But since we're not doing a 12-week program, we're only doing a 4-week program. I had to kind of give you a little heads up to where you want to go moving forward. So you're saying, Mike, I want to exercise more. I'm really digging this exercise. I love those videos that Susan's sending me. I'm looking at all these great meals I'm getting. I'm at a point now where I'm starting to lose weight. I'm feeling really good. And I want to kind of take it up a notch with my exercise. So let's talk a little bit more about an eat more, exercise more model. And we call this the 3-2-2. The 3 stands for 3 meals a day, 3 parts vegetables, 2 part protein, and 1 starch. We're going to have more frequent eating because it helps to aid in recovery with exercise. The 2 is, in addition to the 3 meals, 2 protein snacks. That could be an approved bar. We like the Quest bars. That's the best bar that we like right now. It's the only thing you'll ever hear me talk about is Quest bars. I can't find anything that comes close to them. Okay, about 21 to 23 grams of protein. Or obviously, what's the best protein snack? 1 scoop or 1 packet of ID shake, because it has the micro-milled chia seed in it. It has the whey protein, only 7 ingredients, and stevia. It's a perfect snack. It's also a great meal replacement. We're looking at 20 to 50 grams of protein, depending on how much lean mass you have. If you have about or less than 100 pounds of lean mass, probably closer to 20. If you're a 250-pound linebacker and you're 200 pounds lean mass, you're probably closer to the 50. 2 starches, 1 at the first meal after intense exercise, and maybe 1 in the evening to help you to have enough blood sugar to keep your HEC in check. Remember, HEC stands for hunger, energy, and cravings. So we don't want you to be hungry. We don't want you to have intense cravings. We want you to have good energy. Now, I typically am always in a little bit of a weight loss mode. It's something I've struggled with my whole life, and that's no secret. Okay, so I typically will try to do just the 1 starch a day. But after a really intense workout, I like to do a post-recovery drink that has branched-chain amino acids in it. Why? Why do I want to do that? Well, the first thing is I want to preserve lean body mass. I don't want to lose anything. So if my blood sugar starts to drop after an intense exercise, what does my body need to do to get my blood sugar back up again? Well, it's going to start to degrade protein through that process called gluconeogenesis, which just stands for the creation of new sugar. Happens in the liver, and you're breaking down protein. And by the way, just so you know, the first protein that the body will go after to break down to create sugar is usually dehydrogenase. And dehydrogenase is one of your fat burning hormones. So if you're breaking down a fat burning hormone, guess what it can't do? It can't break down fat to be burned for energy. Okay, so that's an important component. So a good branched chain amino acid in a post-recovery drink, along with ours, happens to have chelates in it, and it has creatine in it. The chelates helps to facilitate the effect of the creatine. Creatine helps to put more sugar and more water into the cell, so the cell operates optimally. It's not about getting bigger. People say, I'll take creatine so I look more pumped up. That's not it. You're taking creatine to get that water and that sugar back into your muscle cell so the mitochondria will function optimally. Because what happens when the mitochondria doesn't function optimally? Your metabolism slows down, and you're opening the door for autoimmune disease. And one of the big ones is multiple sclerosis. Okay, a lot of research coming out there with improving someone's diet and getting them exercising helps to facilitate with that. The other thing you have to know about MS is that it is a demyelinating disease. So you have to make sure you have adequate sources of healthy fats, because on the outside of every single one of the cells in your body are lipids, fats. That's what makes up your cell membrane. And in the case of MS, that those cell membranes start breaking down, and the signal from the brain to the muscle starts to become disrupted, and that's why people have problems with mobility with MS. Okay, that was a whole lecture I just gave you on MS in my physical therapy class, so you know everything your therapist knows. Well, almost. Okay, so let's move on. And probably, well, I won't go there. I promise not to beat up on the docs tonight. I will not do that. 3-2-2 breakfast, lunch, and dinner plate. 3 parts vegetables, 2 parts protein, and 1 part starch or fat. Okay, I like to, in the evening, I like to have fat in my protein. So it might be some salmon, could be some grass-fed beef, or if you eat a really lean protein, like let's say I'm eating chicken, that's a real lean protein, right? Or turkey. Then I might put a little bit of really high quality olive oil vinaigrette dressing on my nice delicious salad, which is part of my vegetables. And my starch, I'm usually a sweet potato guy. It's like my #1 go-to starch. I just love it. And I love it with mustard, by the way. It's really pretty cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about the EM exercise, Eat More, Exercise More exercise program. You can do 3 traditional weight training workouts, and we've kind of drawn those out for you. And that's we're using 4 sets of 10 repetitions. And that could be like a squat, a leg press, or, squat, leg press, kind of the same thing. A bench press, which could be for chest, or it could be a push-up, back, which is lat pull down, single arm rows, or shoulders, which is a high pull or an overhead press. And you know what? When you're doing this with regards to chest, you're working anterior shoulder and tricep. When you're doing a back, of course, you're going to be using your biceps, shoulders. You're going to be using, obviously, the delts and the tris. And when you're squatting, there is no better abdominal exercise you can do than doing a squat, because when that weight is up at shoulder height, you really have to strengthen your core. So that would be the goal. You want to gain muscle, and you want to have enough resistance with those 10 repetitions to affect a change. So what's not on the slide, but what I'm going to tell you right now is, if you train with me, and I know there's people on the line right now who do, what do I always say? Time and tension. I need enough time to get you to breathless and burning, and I need enough tension to get enough muscle fiber working to create that breathless and burning environment. So I want you to think on this for a minute. If you had a paper cup in your hand, a regular paper cup, and it's full with hot coffee, what don't you want to do? You don't want to squeeze it so hard you crush the cup and you burn your hand, right? So our body doesn't necessarily work on repetitions. It works more on resistance. So if I take that coffee cup out of your hand and hand you a 20-pound weight, you have to grip it a whole lot harder so you don't drop it on your toe, right? Well, what happens? You're recruiting more muscle fiber to hold that 20-pound weight than you need to handle the hot cup of coffee. So let's just say, just for sake of argument, there's 10 muscle fibers and you need 1 to 2 muscle fibers to hold the hot cup of coffee. But that means the other 8 muscle fibers are doing nothing. They're resting. They're not being used. Now, if I want to get all 10 of those muscle fibers to work, I got to hand you a heavy enough weight, like a 20-pound weight. And now all 10 are firing at the same time. Okay. So when people say to me, I take a 5-pound weight and I do it 25 repetitions and boy, I get a great burn. You're getting a great burn for only the amount of muscle fibers required to lift that weight. So if you're lifting a 5-pound weight and the maximum weight you can lift is 20 pounds, that means you're only using 1/4 of your muscle mass to do that activity and only fatiguing 1/4. The other 3/4 is sitting in the corner in a Chase Lounge doing nothing. So you need time and you need tension. And if you can combine time and tension together, you will get maximum results by taking yourself to temporary muscle failure to create a breathless and burning environment, hot and heavy, that causes a lactic acid response, which allows the healing compounds of the body, testosterone, human growth hormone, and other tissue repair hormones to go to work for you so you become younger instead of getting older. And that's anti-aging in a nutshell. So we want to do 2 short, intense intervals or metabolic conditioning. So now we're up to 5 workouts for the week. We're going to burn fat. What are some of the short interval type work you can do? You can do CrossFit, interval, spark training, metabolic chains. I'm going to show you metabolic chains in a couple seconds here. And then the other thing you need to do with the eat less, exercise less model, we're doing walking every day, an hour of walking every day. With this example, we're down to twice a week doing an hour of walking, okay? Because we're doing so much other things, we don't want to overtrain. And again, how do we know we're doing enough? You're getting that breathless and burning, and you're starting to see change. Your hunger, your energy, and your cravings are in check, and you're still losing weight. And you know you're losing weight because you can see it in the mirror. You can feel it in your clothes. You could feel that energy. It's 7:55. I've been up. I started my first client this morning at 6:30 a.m. My 6:45 came in a little early. She's a wonderful person. Love her to death. Okay. So I've been training, working for over 12 hours, and you can hear it in my voice, the energy I have. This is what metabolic conditioning, good nutrition, hydration, sleep do for you. You maintain your energy and you feel good about yourself. And you know what? When you feel good about you, you can make other people feel good about them. So in the workout for the EM, it's fast paced. You're going to learn multiple workouts. Susan's hitting you up with workouts every week. And we feel it's the best approach to try to lose stored body fat and build your lean mass. So here's an example of a great metabolic chain. You start at the top. You're doing an overhead press. Second exercise is a squat. The third exercise is a standing row. And then the fourth exercise is a push-up. And then you go back to the top and repeat it again. Okay, now you could do this a couple different ways. The way personally I like to do it is I like to see how many I can do in a minute. And in the course of that minute, because I'm using enough resistance, I need to rest. I can't complete a whole entire minute. So if you're training with me, what do you hear us say all the time? I want you to go as hard as you can, as fast as you can until you can't. And then I want you to rest until you can start up again. So I want to sprint and a rest. I want to sprint and a rest. I don't want a slow, methodical, let me see if I can make this exercise last a minute pace. Because you know what? We don't get breathless. We don't get burning. We don't create heat. We're not using heavy enough weight. All we get is hot water. And hot water doesn't move a locomotive, right? So it's very, very important. This is just one example. A lot of the videos that Susan's been sending you are dealing specifically with this. Okay, so how do we know we're doing the right thing? We have this little thing called the AIM process: assess, investigate, and modify. So what are we assessing? We're assessing your hunger, your energy, and your cravings, right? We want high energy, low hunger, low cravings, and your shape. What do you look like in the mirror? Are you losing weight on the scale? Do your clothes fit you differently? If you're losing weight and your hunger, energy, and craving is good, you're not going to change anything. You're just going to keep riding that horse. It's going to take you where you want to go. Investigate what's happening. Well, let's look at the assessment and investigate what's starting to happen, and modify. What do we need to change? Do we need to change the exercise? Do we need to change nutrition? What exactly do we want to change? I'm going to get into the different scenarios in just a few minutes. So hunger, energy, and cravings, is your heck in check? So with hunger, on a scale from 0 to 10, we want it to be less than a 5. Same thing with the cravings. And the energy, we want it to be 6 or more. So what are we assessing? Is your heck in check? Body composition, percent body fat. A lot of times we want to look at people's lab work. What's your blood sugar like? What's your cholesterol like? One of the things you want to talk to your doctor about is small particle versus large particle. There's a huge difference in small particle versus large particle. And let me give you an example real quick so everyone will understand this. I'll use a nice visual picture here. I want you to imagine a pool and a beach ball floating on top of the water. Okay, that's a large particle. How easy is it for you to take that beach ball and throw it out of the pool? Pretty easy, right? Well, that's what the HDL in your blood does. That's a good cholesterol. Everybody talks about being the good cholesterol. Okay, throwing a beach ball out of the pool, piece of cake. Now, second scenario, you go down to your boat. You lift it up out of the water, and you see barnacles on the bottom of your boat. Has anyone ever tried to scrape barnacles off the bottom of a boat? It's not easy. And your HDL doesn't do it very well. So it starts to build up. So that's the big difference between VLDL, small particle, LDL, large particle. Okay. Where does most of the VLDL cholesterol come from? It comes from processing sugar. Okay, that should tell you something. So if you have too much sugar in your diet and you're not exercising, you're going to be spinning that sugar into triglyceride, and the liver is going to be pumping out VLDL cholesterol, and you're going down a bad road. And by the way, it's not just the cholesterol, it's the problem. It's the inflammation to the arterial linings of your body that causes swelling, that causes the compromise of the space in which blood can flow through. So it's not just plaque buildup. Okay, matter of fact, that's probably not even half of it. More than half of it is the arterial swelling. And by the way, one of the things that causes arterial swelling the worst is nicotine and smoking. So that's why when people come to me, I say, you are absolutely positively not allowed to smoke, because I have cigar smokers who come to me. You are absolutely positively not allowed to smoke before you come to see me, because I'm not going to explain to your wife why you had a heart attack in my office. Okay, so that's a big thing. And if one person picked up on that and is able to tell 2 people, who tells 4 people, we're moving in the right direction. The 4 scenarios I'll get into in a few minutes. Modify: protein, fiber, and water to control HEC, carb and fat adjusted to help you to lose weight. Let's take this the next step. So how do we get your HEC in check? Well, most of our meals we've talked about, we're starting with protein, fiber, and water, okay? Which, by the way, is the perfect ID Life shake, because it's protein, whey protein, micro milled chia seed, fat and fiber, and we're in a good place. For the most part, 4 ounces of beef, chicken, fish is going to get you somewhere in the vicinity of 20 grams of protein, maybe a little more. And a cup of green vegetables, 3 to 5 grams of fiber. It's a great place to start. But you're still hungry and you still have cravings. What do? The next step is we're going to add fat. So if we're having a salad, we're going to make sure maybe we add some avocado to that salad, or a good, healthy balsamic vinaigrette type salad dressing with good quality olive oil. I'm still hungry, Mike. This isn't working. Okay, let's try to take some of the fat out of the meal and let's add the starch in. And we always talk about bites. Bites are easy. Okay, so add 3 bites, or about a half a cup of brown rice, sweet potato, so forth, about 10 grams. If that's not working add the fat back in. Because, I can't compare a 250-pound guy to a 125-pound woman telling her to eat 4 ounces of beef and a cup of vegetables, and that satisfies her. It nowhere comes close to satisfying the bigger guy, who probably has a lot more lean mass. So we have to make sure that we add the sweet potato in. You can put some olive oil on it. And then if that's still not working, then we need to add snacks in between meals. And that's when we start going to Quest bars and small protein shakes, or we could have some rolled up turkey with some lettuce. There's a couple things, and this is where the coaching comes in, guys. This is where you have to ask us questions. This is where we can help you. So how do you really measure fat loss? It's more, we want you to focus more on the body shape and percent body fat. And there is a fat calculator. Susan sent this out. Our good friends at Metabolic Effect have a really great way to determine percent body fat without using calipers. And of course, if you live locally, you're going to come to me and I'll do this for you. We're giving you the measuring points. Again, this is in the handout, so I won't spend any time on this. Again, what are some of the things we talk about? If you're not gaining weight, your heck is in check, but you're not losing weight, look on cutting back on some of the starchy foods at the meals, or maybe move all your starch intake to one meal. I prefer to do mine in the evening. It helps me with sleeping. Cut back on the fats, making sure you're not eating any processed foods that could have trans fats, hydrogenated oils in them. Potentially eat less frequently. Some people are adding all those snacks in. Maybe it's too much food. Look for trigger foods. For me, it's peanut butter. I know that once I go down that path, it could be a problem. All right. So this is where we want to coach you on these. These are questions we can talk about. So again, if your heck is in check, you have good hunger, good energy, good cravings, not a problem. You're losing weight. Don't do anything. If your heck is in check, but you're not losing weight, okay, let's look at cutting back at starch at different meals, move all the starch to one meal, cut back on fat, eat less frequently, search for your trigger foods, and maybe start monitoring calories. Maybe you're having too many calories. Maybe you're using too much salad dressing. Okay, what happens when your heck is not in check, but you are losing weight? And everyone's usually like, wow, that's great, I'm losing weight. You can't sustain it. Your body's going to fight back. Remember about metabolic compensation. So we say at first, add more protein and fiber and water to your meals. If that's not working, you're still having hunger and cravings and your energy's low, add a fat in. If that's still not working, take the fat out and put the starch in. If that's still not working, add both fat and starch to your meals. If it's still not working, you're still losing weight, but you still have hunger and cravings and low energy, now it's time to start adding the snacks. And that has a lot to do when we start getting to an exercise more program. Okay, if your heck is not in check and you're not losing weight, do everything we just talked about and call me or get in touch with me because we're doing something wrong. Okay. I think we're at a point where this is where I want to stop. Oh, Susan added this one slide in. Okay. She wanted me to remind you guys of free foods. Cacao, not cocoa. I should say cacao. Cacao is really great. Cacao is going to help you to get your serotonin and dopamine levels up, and it helps to balance out brain chemistry. So you can add cacao, which has no sugar in it, to practically any of your recipes. So Susan will make a hot chocolate with stevia, almond milk, and cacao. You can put cacao in a protein shake. You can make some of your different recipes that would be enhanced by having a chocolate flavor to it into that, and it's not going to hurt you. Celery, cucumbers, pickles, lettuce, vinegar, lemon juice, all no problem there. Hydrate and Energy are two ID Life products that are designed to help you get your energy up. The one thing that people need to know is everybody talks about energy is like, oh, it has caffeine in it. That's my energy. That's only a very small part of it. The bigger part is something called Avantra Z. Avantra Z is designed to mobilize fat to be burned for energy, and that's where the energy comes from. It is an energy releasing product, not a central nervous system stimulator like caffeine could be. Is there caffeine in energy? Yes, but that's not really what makes it work. What really makes it work is that Avantra Z. And then we also use that in some other products. We have a energy chew and an appetite control chew that both use Avantra Z. The only thing I'll tell you, if you're an NCAA Division I athlete or you're competing in a sport that has drug monitoring, you cannot use any of the energy products like that because the Avantra Z is a natural form of Cephalin, if I'm saying that right, and Synephrine, and that is banned. Guess what else is banned, guys? Caffeine. So don't drink coffee. If you're going to a sporting event and you feel you're going to be tested, don't drink caffeine because that's also banned by the NCAA. Hydrate has no stimulating, no stimulant in it at all. It's vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, water, and stevia. So you're home free on that. Mostly all vegetables. Now remember, starches are different. Starches are a vegetable, like beans is mostly fats and carbs. Potatoes, sweet potato is mostly starch. Quinoa is a starch. Any of the grains are starches. Oatmeal, buckwheat, corn, peas, those are all starches. So you have to just be careful with those because you can't eat mashed potatoes and corn and lose weight. Not going to work. And if you put gravy on it, you're definitely never losing weight. Vegetable drinks, fruit drinks once a day if really needed, or protein is an issue. A lot of people add spinach to their protein shakes, and it's pretty awesome. You add celery to your protein shakes. Most of the leafy greens you're not going to run into trouble with. Now, if you're having some thyroid issues, just I'll throw this out at you real quick, and then we're going to end on this. There's a lot of good research that says cruciferous vegetables need to be cooked so they don't disrupt thyroid. I don't have a thyroid problem, so I could eat anything raw. It's not going to affect me. If you're on medication, just realize that kale is cruciferous, and so are collard greens. They're cruciferous. So they may not do good for you in a shake if you have a thyroid problem. But again, spinach works just great, and that's not cruciferous. I love kale. I love collards, but I eat them cooked. I just like them better that way anyway, because I'm really not a big fan of kale. Much rather eat collards. But they're great as far as vitamins, minerals, and so forth. All right, guys, here's what we're going to do. Let me get out of this and jump back here. Susan. Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions here. Susan was supposed to show me how to get rid of this side thing and just look at what you're doing here. All right, Lynn said all right, completely lost me now for at least 5 minutes, and Susan hasn't walked in here, so I don't know what's going on. She usually will give me a heads up. The whole thing was buried. Anyone else? Okay. We're going to work on that. Susan, she's usually looking at me on a tablet or an iPhone. So if there was a blurry problem, she would have come in. So I'm not sure what it was. Are you okay?
Yeah, everything's good, but I'll just leave that up for now because I don't want you to lose the chat.
Okay, leave it up for now so I don't lose the chat. Lynn, why don't you and I talk on Facebook about the ID Life bar? I'll give you a little more on that. The definition of a protein is protein plus fiber has to be greater than fat and carbohydrate. So for our clients who are on a weight loss program, we typically do not go with something. Maybe the recorded version will be better. I'm getting some good insight from Lynn. I want my snacks, my protein snacks, to be proteins, and that's protein plus fiber has to be greater than fat plus carbohydrate. Okay, so let me jump into Facebook. I'll be on our private page that everyone has access to, and we can answer more questions there, guys. Have a great night, and I'll see you guys on Facebook in a few minutes. Bye-bye.